In this week's parsha, we're reading Parashat Re'eh. One of the verses in this parsha, it's all the Sefer Dvarim, the narration of Moshe Rabbeinu, of the story of our travels in the desert and our entry to Eretz Yisrael. A lot of rules about the entry to Eretz Yisrael, especially the previous parsha, was all about the uniqueness of Eretz Yisrael, Eretz HaKodesh, the Holy Land. And this parasha, one of the very important commandments that the Torah states is that it's forbidden, or at first it was permitted. It was permitted to sacrifice to Hashem in an altar, to build an altar in several different places. But once Hashem chose Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount, which we all know today, till this very day, once that place was chosen to build the temple on, so it's forbidden to make sacrifices, to build altars anywhere other than Har HaMoriah, than Beis HaMikdash. The verse says, "Lo ta'ale olotecha ishamir lecha, pen ta'ale olotecha ki im b'makom asher yivchar Hashem." So you should be wary and careful. Again, there's a double warning here in the language, in the Hebrew language. Hishamir lecha pen, that you should be very wary, very careful not to sacrifice, not to make sacrifices anywhere other in the chosen altar in the temple, in the chosen temple, Beis HaMikdash. Now the Ishbitz of this week, and this is the point that he contemplates on, a very beautiful point of meditation. He asks, why is this commandment, this forbidding, stressed in a duplicated manner? Why does the Torah double stress this commandment? Not to be very careful, Yishamir pen, be careful, extremely careful not to sacrifice, not to make a sacrifice on any altar other than the temple. Pen ta'ale olotecha. Now also the sacrifice mentioned here, and this is all something you need a little bit of Hebrew for, but when the Torah, there are several words for sacrifices, also different types of sacrifices that were practiced in the temple. And the word used here for a sacrifice is olah. Olah is a type of korban, which, many of the korbanot, there are different sacrifices, which become the value of the sacrifice, like the meat and the skin of the animal that was sacrificed, is distributed between the priests and the person bringing the sacrifice, and some certain parts of the animal are given up to the altar, or burnt on the altar to Hashem. But olah is a korban where the entire sacrifice goes up to Hashem. So it's a very unique, in a way, maybe even the highest korban in that manner. That it's something that, like a gift that a person gives completely to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now this is the word, this type of korban is the word that the Torah chooses to use to describe the sacrifice that you're forbidden to do anywhere other than the temple. Now, how does the Israel contemplate on this? Like we customarily do, we want to contemplate this in our psychological faculties to see how we implement this today. So he says a very beautiful point. We all know that in the service of Hashem, one of the most important concepts is avodah l'shem shamayim, that a person should be serving the Lord, serving Hashem, and Michal, living, doing everything he does for the true sake of Hashem, to do things truthfully. So even if we don't see that strictly in a service of Hashem manner, but a person, when you do something, you should be doing what it is that you're doing. You shouldn't be sidestepping, or again, your face, that's the phrase in Hebrew, you shouldn't be facing in a different direction. So for instance, if I give charity to a person, or I try to help a friend of mine, so the phrase for doing it in the wrong manner, again, not wholeheartedly, is that I'm facing something else, implying that even though I'm doing a certain action, like I'm helping this person, but because I have a side interest, like I want to gain something from this, or I'm looking for pride, or maybe I'm getting paid, or again, the reason I'm doing it isn't the actual deed. I'm not doing it for the sake of the deed itself. So that's called that I'm facing somewhere else. My face, a pniyah, is where I'm turning. It means where my attention is set. So even though I could be doing something over here, but psychologically my attention is somewhere else, because that's where my interest is. So that's the description of a bad consciousness. You shouldn't be living this way. You shouldn't be doing one thing while your attention is actually doing something else. It's like it's not a non-lawful. It's like you're lying to reality. You imply that you're giving charity, that you care about this person, but really you don't care about this person. You care about something else. Again, about the whatever benefit is that you feel that you're getting from this deed. So that's where your face is actually facing. Now, if you're doing what you're doing, you're facing what you're doing. You're giving charity and you're helping this person because you care about this person. So the reason is actually what you're doing. It's a completely, again, innocent, true action. So that's the healthy way that the Torah wants you to live your life, and also in the service of Hashem. A person devotes himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He should do it for the sake of the devotion, because he feels value and cherishes the devotion to Hashem, not because of any side interest of what it is that I think that I'll get from this. So that's called avodah l'shem shamayim. So it's a very lofty and positive concept. If you're familiar with the Jewish concept, so doing things l'shem shamayim. L'shem shamayim means in the name of the Lord. That I'm doing it for the sake of what I'm saying that I'm doing. I'm serving Hashem for the sake of the service of Hashem, because I feel that this is something precious, and not that I have any intricate set of interests in the background which is driving me. So this concept is very, very central and very valuable in the Jewish thought, obviously, in any guidance of Jewish life. Now, he says a beautiful thing here, the Ishbitzer, that you should be very careful not to live this way anywhere other than the service of Hashem. A very phenomenal concept. That as much as it's important to do everything you do in the service of God should all be done l'shem shamayim. It should all be done innocently and lawfully while you're facing face to face with what you're doing. But as important as that is, it's all the more important. And again, the Torah, as he describes, is a warning on this twice, like a double warning, not to do anything else in life this way. Nothing else you do should be face to face. This is a wondrous implication. Why not? You think that everything you do should be face to face. No, that the Ishbitzer says no. Only the service of Hashem. Now, what is he implying here? So we see today very, very commonly that there's a tendency that everything a person does, he wants psychologically, like this tendency to sanctify it. And so no matter what job you're taking, no matter where you go to study, or you go to any academic system, or to the army, the military, the medical system, whatever it is that you're working in, systems have a tendency to suckle or try to imply divine value to themselves. Right? So if you're coming to work, then you're not just a simple worker. You're not making your living. No, you're a community server. Right? We find all sorts of words to sanctify and add a value to the things we do. So even if I'm just doing a mundane thing, but I don't want to call it. Again, it's like a psychological tendency. I don't want to call it just a mundane thing. I have a tendency to sanctify it. And that tendency, it's not just me. It's like a mutual tendency for all of society. So also the systems that I'm serving, that I'm part of, are usually very into exaggerating this tendency. So all of us together, like you walk into the academic world, or again, all the examples we said before, you go to the army, that's a great example. So everything there's an abundance of pathos, of exaggeration of value, of how important everything you do is here. So you're not just making a cup of coffee, right? You're serving those who are here to serve and protect, or whatever it is that we add up, that we pile up onto these deeds. And where is this coming from? Again, every system does this. And by doing that, we take all sorts of values and we subjugate ourselves to them. Now, this is what the Ishbitzer is saying here. That even though there is this psychological tendency, a person should be wary of piling up excess value into what he does. In a sense, I will say this bluntly, when you do something functional, then you should do it for a functional reason. It's good to be facing a different direction. So if you're going to make a living for your family, then it's good that you have a side interest. When you go to work, but your face is really with your family. Now your family is actually a lofty, sanctified thing, which should be driving you. And not only does that anchor not take out or subdue the value of what you're doing, it actually gives it value. But if you try to put value in the circumstantial, technical thing, then you'll lose value from the true anchors of value in life. So again, it's like a competition, like a mountain, and there's always a question what you put on top, and there's like a competition between all the areas of life are all competing to be the king of a person's reality. So everywhere you go, every system you enter is trying to present itself as the top of this pyramid. And you should be very, very careful not to devote yourself, not to sanctify anything that's not truly worth that sanctification. So just as much as it's important that your service of Hashem is something that's completely face-to-face, there shouldn't be any side interest that makes the service of Hashem not the center of your attention. Just as important as that is, everything else you do, there should be a side interest. You should be very careful not to put it in the center of your life. Right? So if, again, like that example, it could very well be that a person's job is really a shlichut. It's really a calling. Okay, but let's take a mundane example. A person, he goes out to work in the morning, but it shouldn't become the center. If all this is something that you're doing in order to finance your family and your life, so your life and the value of your life and why you have a family and what you're devoted to in life should be something sanctified. And the job that you utilize, and this is something that you're not doing face-to-face, you're using this, it should remain something that you use. And you should remain anchored in your sanctified values. And that your job or where you make a living remains in the background of your life, that's a good thing. You need to be very, very careful not to get sucked in to sanctify the means towards the end. Right, so there's the end, there's the purpose of life, and the purpose should be sanctified. But something that's not a purpose, you need to be very careful not to sanctify it. And we should, as we said, there's a tendency to do the opposite. All systems of life are constantly competing to sanctify themselves, to put themselves in the head of the pyramid. Now, anywhere you go today, you can sense this. So the more anchored you are on the service of Hashem, of what your true purpose in life is, and you're focused on that, then the more you tend to be, again, not focused. Again, you could be doing your job very seriously, but you don't tend to sanctify it. You don't need to be called a community server every time you serve coffee. No, this is my job. This is what I do. Why? Why? Because I need to make a living in order to fund my family, which is actually something holy. I need to do it in order to fund my calling, my shlichut, my service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the education of my children, the things that I've truly sanctified, and they remain my anchor. And if that's the case, then anywhere else that's not that center, then I'm never completely face-to-face. It's always something that, in a sense, it sounds a little bit derogatory, but this is a good thing. In a sense, I'm always using it. I'm using my job. It's good to use my job. Again, to use the service of Hashem in order to gain benefits, that's a very bad thing, because that turns the service of Hashem into a means towards an end. But to use anything else towards the end of serving Hashem, like I eat or I make money, okay, because I need to be healthy and I need to be funded and saturated so that I can be available to serve Hashem. So everything else I do is all I'm using it to serve where my center focus is. And this is how the Ishbitzer explains this verse in the Torah. And it's just as important it is to be focused and devoted to do a korban olah, to give this sacrifice, which is a complete devotion to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You need to be double as careful not to find yourself existentially devoted to anything else, because that will captivate you, and it will imprison you. Again, if you get sucked up in whatever world that is, and you sanctify it, like your job, then you'll find yourself, you're like, I'm working because I went to work in order to fund something that was worth living for, and I find myself living for my work instead of working for my life. Okay, so you need, this is a mundane, stereotypical example, but it's true in everything in life. And so the more you're anchored in a true divine devotion, then the more you need to be careful to not find yourself funneling that utter devotion to anything but your divine devotion. So it's even more important to be careful not to be, again, sucked in to a set of values that will sidetrack you from what you're truly devoted to. And that's what the Torah commands us. Hishamer lecha pen ta'aleh olotecha. Be very careful not to sacrifice, give total devotion anywhere but the place which Hashem chose. So that's a simple and beautiful insight from our week's parasha from the Ishbitzer. Shavua Tov to everyone. Kol Tov.